keep moving with our next keynote, which is about another challenge that our cities are facing. Who got stuck in traffic today? From traffic to environmental decline, they're all rooted in how we divide and design our urban spaces. Our next speaker, Dror Besharit, founder of Supernature Labs. Dror brings over 20 years of award-winning experience in architecture and design, putting them together to rethink city planning with nature's own blueprint, cellular, interconnected, and adaptive. We're going to keep it going. Please give a warm volcano welcome to Dror. Here we go.
Good morning. I know you're expecting me to speak about design, but I woke up this morning in room number 1 inside of a church that is 500 years old. And I thought that I'm really in the mood to talk about love. I'm really in the mood to talk about empathy. And I realized that I came here to Guatemala with a big mission, a very big mission, to leapfrog what I consider one of the biggest problems of our time, at least our biggest design problem of our time, which is the future expansion of our cities. You see, there's nothing that humanity builds that is physically bigger than the cities that we're living in. And over the next 25 years, we are going to double those environments. But before I'm going to take you on the journey of what I've been working on for the last 8 years with Supernature, I'm going to give you a bit of background about what I used to do for the last 20 years prior to that, and then take you into the future, and take you into what I envision Guatemala and many other countries' urban environment can become. To shift away from what we call a traditional city planning into not sustainability. The future is not sustainable. The future is ecological. We should live in harmony with all of life as one practical objective. So, but before that, I'm going to walk through what Studio Dror used to do, speak about Supernature, and speak about bioplanning, and share with you our plans for the future. Design has been what I've been focusing on for pretty much all my life, starting with various product design, ranging from a small vase for Rosenthal in 2021 when I started my practice, and evolve into other products, and then into larger and larger collaborations with different brands such as Tumi and Bentley, and then doing more art installations and doing more architectural projects until we created a project that really transformed my way of understanding of the impact of architecture and the impact of planning. So from that to basically designing the last project that Studio Dror was focusing on, which is the Galata port. It's the largest port of Istanbul. And that was pretty much the final project under Studio Dror before I realized the world is facing a major, major problem. As designers and architects, we often say that we shape the environment, and in return, the environment shapes us. What does that actually mean? Do I want to live in an environment that looks like this and let that kind of environment shape my life? I don't think so. But this is the reality of our cities. When we're looking at our cities, we basically realize a couple of different things. Number one, we forgot that we are part of nature. we forgot that we need nature. Number two, we realize that we've been building everything with a linear grid. Why? Because those are the tools that we had. Those were the capabilities that we have. And we thought it's the most efficient. But what we realized is that we actually created some of the biggest problems of the 21st century with the way that we subdivided cities. Today, the #1 pandemic of cities is loneliness. The pandemic of loneliness, I live in New York City part of the time, and I can tell you, the denser we live, the more lonelier we feel. How is that possible? We forgot that we are part of nature, that we are nature, that we need nature in order to sustain and reconnect to our empathy, a sense of belonging, and a sense of community. And those are the things that we simply forgot. The solution is much simpler than you might think, and it lies in geometry. You see, if you think of a grid, and what does a grid mean? It means that I'm chopping up a land into boxes. And when I chop up land into boxes, what do I get? I get either buildings that are small townhouses, low-rise, mid-rise, high-rise, and skyscrapers. Those are the only building typologies that we see in cities. But we are about to double not just the land coverage of cities, but also the total volumetric mass that we are building within cities somewhere within the next 25 to 35 years. I'm going to repeat that. Doubling the land coverage and doubling the total volumetric mass. So technically, there is no bigger asset class than real estate. There is no bigger impact on the environment. There is no bigger impact on climate. There is no bigger impact on humanity. There are about 2.6 billion additional people that are going to live in cities by 2050s. Now, we hope that our cities will stop looking like graveyards from above, right? So, when we are basically saying the future should not be sustainable, it should be ecological, we basically realize that there are three things that we need to do. Number one, design like nature does. How does nature design? What does 4 billion years of evolution is actually teaching us? Second, how do we design with nature, and how do we design for all of life as one practical objective and not just for people? About 20 years ago, there started a movement called human-centric design. Have you heard of human-centric design? What the hell does it mean? We have not been human-centric before that, so we technically have not. We have designed for cars, we've designed for profit, we have designed for extractivism, but nature organized everything in cell formation. What does that mean, cell formation? It means that it's not linear, it's actually node-based. What is node-based? It means that if we actually compare the existing cities and the existing grid to how nature operates, we start to realize enormous amount of benefits across multiple verticals. And I'm going to take you through today some of them. First, the environment that you see on the left and the environment that you see on the right is the exact same amount of built environment, but with half the amount of infrastructure, and in exchange, an enormous amount of nature. Now, what does that mean? We call it bioplanning. The reason why we call it bioplanning is it's basically designing with the nature geometry and the nature logic that the place that we are operating with wants to take. Now, the largest construction company in the world actually helped us realize that we can do that faster and more cost-effective than a traditional building today if we compare apple to apple. Why and how come? Two simple reasons. Number one, The biggest thing that takes construction a long time is construction operation. The logistics that it takes to actually build a place. When you have a central deployment, you can actually reduce construction time quite significantly. The comparison is, if I'm cooking in a round kitchen, then I don't need to go to the fridge and go back to the stove, but everything is in arm reach, I can actually cook faster, right? Same exact logic. By reducing the total infrastructure around me, I'm also able to reduce enormous amount of cost and enormous amount of time. So what we've done is we started studying the variety of cities, the varieties of conditions, the varieties of climate, and we realized that the same logic operates across various culture and various densities and various needs. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples. This is the same exact example that you saw earlier, just in a three-dimensional way, where I simplified it into pixels so you can actually see that it's the same exact construction, just oriented in a different way. And basically you can see the enormous amount of reduction in road and road circulation and the enormous amount of natural space. Same exact thing in this low density, right? When we're talking about urban sprawl, right? Suburban sprawl. It's typically low density of homes. Now think about the fact that everything is on the left, is on the right, the same exact amount of homes, the same exact amount of sizes of the homes and land, but massive reduction in land just by the shift in geometry. So imagine a kid growing up playing in a parking lot or on the road versus playing in a community that belongs to all the residents around. Imagine the impact of elderly people that basically wants a social interaction that can happen underneath their homes. So, same exact thing in mid-density, same exact thing in a high density, and we've basically started working on various projects around the world until we realize a mega problem. We realize that there's about 60,000 municipalities around the world that are actually going to double their land coverage over the next 25 years. But here's the problem. Within 25 years, they're already going to be built. The decisions of land subdivision in all of those municipalities are happening right now, including Guatemala. Now, if we start chopping up land for more logical boxes, we are going to get more boxes. And if we actually change the land subdivision, we can actually change the trajectory of how those places evolve. Now, everybody's always asking me about traffic. How does traffic flow? You're saying faster and more cost-effective and easier. So what you see here is each community is organized like a giant roundabout. So you basically do not have four ways crossing. For the very first time, pedestrians are not walking on a sidewalk, right? Think even the name sidewalk. We walk on the side while the car is moving in the center. For the first time, pedestrians can actually flow within the city in such a way that they're not interacting with traffic. They're basically free to move around in a green space that can actually move from one cell to another without the intersection that basically all of us are constantly sharing. Those intersections are conflict points that are making our urban experience so difficult. Right? When we are talking about four ways intersection, simple four ways intersection have 16 potential collision points. Three ways intersection have only 3 potential collision points. What does that mean for safety? What does that mean for how relaxed you come home after work or how relaxed you come to work and how actually smooth you actually move through traffic, which I think is one of the most important aspects here. Now, so when we're talking about urban typology, we're talking about something that is different than the traditional boxes, right? So we shifted from saying super blocks and blocks into cellular aggregation. What's good about it? One, it allows me to deal with flooding issues much easier, right? I have now porous area, I have areas that can capture water in a different way. You've been here yesterday, you've seen the incredible rain. That rain needs to basically go into a sponge place, right? When you're talking about noise within the cities, when you introduce trees, you're not just masking the noise, you're actually inviting birds and other animals that are actually making a much more exciting sound in your environment. This was shocking to me. Simply by changing the geometry of the orientation of your design, of the orientations of the houses, you can reduce heating and cooling by about 40%. No different systems, just in orientations of massing. So, we call it bioplanning. We basically realized that we need to publish it, we need to share it with the world, but something really instrumental happened afterwards. I said, this needs to be a non-for-profit organization that shares it. I invited the people that supported me in creating this language over the years to start what we call the Bioplanning Institute. And now there are 3 companies that are governing this logic. Supernature Labs, which actually creates ecological districts in various parts of the world, and I'll show you a couple of examples in a second. The Bioplanning Institute, which governs a new standard, which I'm going to talk mostly about the standard, and Bioplanning AI, which is basically the technology arm that supports the bioplanning approach. So, what is a new standard? How do we bring a new standard? Gensler has been one of the architectural companies that have been helping us with this, and a few others, including AECOM that just joined us, which is one of the largest infrastructure and engineering company in the world, and a new standard that we are calling LIFE. We call it LIFE for 2 reasons. One, living infrastructure for ecological futures, and number 2, for the first time, taking life as one practical objective, in the words of Bruce Mau. So, what does that mean to create a standard? And more important than the standard, what does that mean to create compliances? I had a meeting with somebody that I did not know how important he was at Goldman Sachs. And he told me, Dror, I really like what you're doing, but there's an issue for every banks that are lending money for large-scale development projects. There are no compliances for ecological urban development. Do you know why? And I said, I have no idea. He said, look, in order for a bank to create compliances for a financial product, we need to go by a standard, right? If there is no standard, my compliances are not relevant. If you can create a standard, we can create compliances. Now, I didn't realize what that means. What it means is there is about 250 to $350 trillion in urban development over the next 25 years. 250, some are estimating it north of $350 trillion for new urban development globally. So, if you can create a new asset class for ecological urban development, how could that incentivize financial institutions, developers, municipalities, and so forth, right? So, we're not just talking about benefits for us as society. We're not just talking about benefits for the environment. We're not just talking about dealing with climate in a different way. We're actually talking about the largest asset class that can actually create benefits from all of those ripple effects of benefits. Now, so if I talk about supernature, Supernature is now focusing on demonstrating those types of environment in various parts of the world. Some of them are more high-end, luxurious district, and some of them are projects that are needed in countries that have urgent need for development, such as Guatemala, such as the entire continent of Africa, such as India, and of course, many other developing countries. So very quickly, I'm gonna play this video that is just a quick teaser for what we're doing with Supernature in Abu Dhabi. So, thank you. So this is, of course, you know, a very high-end project, very much focused on hospitality in Abu Dhabi. Funding is not an issue, and you're asking yourself, how is this relevant to us? How could this be relevant to us? Now, of course, when we are talking about comparing identical construction methodology with a cellular logic, the fact that we are able to reduce construction speed time in about 20 to 25%, imagine that a project now, instead of taking 5 years, is taking 4 years. What are the financial implications of that? What is the financial implication when you reduce roads and sidewalks and road infrastructure by about 50%? So all of that logic can apply to any type of project, and actually one of the things that is important for us with this logic is not just to change the geometry and increase the amount of nature, is also creating awareness that our buildings are reflections of our culture. I've been traveling to so many countries over the last several years and realizing the enormous amount of identity lost within architecture. It doesn't need to cost a lot to paint buildings, to create textures, to create patterns that are connected to the heritage, that are connected to the culture. So my goal today is not to come here in order to change how we can help, is actually how you can help. How you can actually take this approach and evolve it into what Guatemala needs. I'm going to skip a few of my slides here, and I'm going to jump into what we're doing in New York in 2 more weeks. We are basically realizing that in order for the bioplanning approach to catch on in many countries around the world, we need to activate 4 things. Number 1, the talent pool. Right? The people that are actually designing, the engineers, the architects, the urban planners that are adapting a new framework away from sustainable practice and into ecological practice. That's number 1. Number 2, developers, construction companies, come and adapt a new logic and show the world that you're able to create those types of projects and actually create systems that can take them into more and more places. Municipalities and governments needs to change zoning framework fundamentally. We simply need to scrap our zoning packages and replace them entirely with something completely new and different. And then financial institutions, of course, adapting a new type of products that incentivize municipalities and developers to actually create ecological environments. So a couple facts about Guatemala. Today, 18.7 million people and an estimate of 26 million people by 2050. So you ask yourself, where are those people going to live? Those people are our children's and their children's. That's who is going to live in those cities. So from 18.7 to 26, this is not just the amount that is going to be, throughout the country. The overall percentage of urban dwellers is accelerating. So, enormous amount of mid-rises until the horizon can see, or a time to think differently. The shift is very simple, away from linear practice to what we call the geometry of life. Life has been proven this geometry across every discipline that shaped our understanding, from chemistry to physics to cosmology to every industry that influenced our life, except the biggest design challenge that we are creating, which is cities. So I welcome you to a new framework, a new mindset, a new approach that can potentially traject what empathy actually means within cities. Thank you very much.